Hey listeners, Kerry here. I'm so excited to announce the launching of a new podcast, The Artist Entrepreneur, with my friends Noah Doc, Amanda Ritchie, and myself, Kerry Wee. We are going to talk about art and business, the art of business as an artist and creative, and I'm so excited to bring it to you guys. I'm going to have it here on this feed on Thursdays, as well as its own feed, but it's going to be right here for you if you already listened to the Expecting Analyst. All right, guys, I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this. Let's get started. This is the Artist Entrepreneur Podcast. We are your hosts, Amanda Ritchie, Noah Doc, and me, Kerry Wee. We're three artists brought together by the love of circus and dance. Amanda from the world of Cirque Du Soleil as an aerial soloist. Noah, our academic, and me from the commercial dance world. This is one of the greatest jobs in the world, but it comes with uncertainty. Each episode contains insight on how to pursue art-based businesses. We'll have a variety of guests and have lively weekly Discord. Tune in every week to hear our perspectives on the minefield that is the artist's way of life. When I first met Noah, in my class, he came to just take a class and pop in. He introduced himself. He's like, I'm retired.
That is
my line. Retired aerialist.
I am the retired aerialist.
And I was like, how old are you?
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah, because you've had like 9 lives since then. Noah,
my mommy is 47.
And now the whole world knows that.
She's outing me. Well, they know anyway, but now they really on the new podcast. They really know.
My mom is 47.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
My name is Noah Doc. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I have a background in, I'm not going to say all things arts, but many things arts is I think a good way of putting it. Started originally as a trumpet player and a magician, and so I learned how to do close-up magic when I was a kid, and I was a musician for a long time. I started to do dance and choreography and fell in love with the performing arts. Went to get my undergraduate degree at Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I got my BA in dance and business, and it was there that I found circus. And I found circus because I was afraid of heights. I was afraid of being upside down. And I thought, what if I take an aerial silks class? That'll totally get me over that fear. And I started doing aerial acrobatics at Hollywood Aerial Arts in Los Angeles. I took that into creating a performance program at the college that I went to, which I was the director of, artistic director of, and founder of. And that eventually turned into a circus company that I was one of the founders of in New York City that I ran for 5 years, where I choreographed, directed, produced, wrote, and overall created. We did 3 shows a year for 5 years. The company was called the Atlas Circus Company. And I was also a college professor at Muhlenberg College where I was teaching aerial acrobatics. I co-wrote a circus history course and did many other things. On top of that, I worked administratively in marketing and production for different companies in New York City. Eventually went to get my master's at California Institute of the Arts in Los Angeles for dance choreography. And then there was a pandemic and I moved up to the mountains. And should I stop there? That's pretty much where circus sort of ends, I guess.
Noah, what's current? What's your newest?
Oh, currently.
What's the thing happening now?
Currently, I am building a dating app called the Red Flags Dating App, designed to get people to have real life relationships, get off the apps, stop creating pen pals, and actually go on real in-person dates. On top of that, I do social media management, which actually maybe this could be a good thing for this podcast. I'm phasing out of. I'm letting go of my social media management stuff in order to pursue things that, you know, make me a little bit more happy and I have more of a passion for, like Red Flags Dating App, but also I've been doing some choreography again, did a proof of concept for a TV show, doing some music videos, teaching, doing a lot of photography stuff, and potentially getting back into the mixology and bar world.
Wow. Freaking your resume. Seriously, you're going to be you when I grow up.
Maybe this is perfect for this podcast too. I was just on a panel at a high school for artists and like artist process and stuff like that. And we were talking about like, how do you go from having your idea to like putting it out in the world? At what point do you like say to yourself, this is good enough, or this is good and I'm going to put it out into the world? And one of the people on the panel, he said, some people never put it out into the world. Some people never decide to put it out there. But those of us who like want to be artists and put things out there, like at some point you have to have the baby. Like you are pregnant with the idea. You're pregnant with the thing. At some point you have to have the baby, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's, whether you're ready or not. At some point you have to have the baby. And I think that's how I look at a lot of the things that I'm doing, because I do a lot of things. And for me, there's a lot of like, if I waited for perfection with everything, I'll never make anything. But if I just say, I have to have the baby, I have to just do it, then you end up doing 5,000 things.
Yeah, I feel like spaghetti on the wall has been the way I've been since I stopped dancing, because if not, like you have to be building something all the time, or else as an artist trying to transition into not performing, which is so much of my life. You just have to do it. Should I do me?
Yeah, do it.
Oh my God. So listeners, the person who came up with adding another podcast to my life was actually me. So I can't blame anybody. I have met Amanda and Noah. Like I've known Amanda because we work together, but we started hanging out like in the gym. And I was like, man, there's something about the three of us. I don't know what it is. And then I dropped the very like weird news that I was moving to Texas of all places. And they actually took it the most well out of everybody I know. So I don't know what that means.
Thank God she's leaving.
Like-minded.
You guys took it really well, because I think also out of all the people in my life, you guys get it. You're like, this world is all connected on the internet. We're all traveling all the time. It doesn't matter where you lay your head. As long as all the things are lining up for what you need. That's the vibes I get from you guys. Maybe that's why I resonate with you guys. One of the reasons why. Are you going to stay in there if I put you in there? Or are you going to run back in here in 2 more minutes?
Okay.
I think she needs an Instagram account that's all, it's just called like Messages from Bean.
For her.
And the whole thing is just like her interruptions of podcasts and like whatever Bean says during a podcast.
There you go, Kerry. You were asking me about TikTok. So Noah just created your TikTok account.
I'm rebranding you, and it's called Messages from Bean. And every video is a moment that she interrupts you during a podcast. You
have so much content. Are you kidding me? So obviously I have a 5-year-old kid that will out me and my age every turn. My name's Kerry Wee. I'm already a podcaster. I'm a mama. I just moved to Texas. Oh my God. All I wanted to do was dancing when I was a kid. I just wanted to be a dancer. And I wasn't that good, actually, when I was younger. I like grew into it in my 20s. 8 years into my dance career, I met this woman named Rachel Bowman. She was she was on one of the shows I was dancing in. She was doing aerial, and I was mesmerized. And then she started training me. I don't know, 15, 17 years later, she's my boss. I'm teaching, retiring from dance, but I have a college degree. I went to Oberlin College for poli-sci. I'm total political junkie. Now I'm an instructor, and I have this business called Wrap Your Head Around Silks, where I teach online, where I am trying to become a teacher to the world. You guys, try to teach everybody.
The world needs you.
You know? Amanda Ritchie, you became one of my favorite people very recently.
Stop it.
And I mean, Noah too, but he already knew that. Look at that stash he's got.
I know. I noticed the stash.
Look at the stash. It's new. You kind of look a little bit sleazy.
I think I should have a different facial hair for every single podcast that we do.
This face of yours, you're not going to look bad.
Aw, thanks.
I'm saying.
Thanks.
You know, he does well in the dating apps, which is probably why he's okay with starting one.
I'm still single, people. I'm not doing that well. That's why I'm starting one.
Yeah, Amanda's one of my new favorite people in the world. And before I got to know her, people were like, "Did you know Amanda was in Cirque du Soleil? Blah 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 blah. Do you think she had a good experience? Because she never talks about it." And I was like, "I don't know. Let me ask her." And I did, and she was like, "Man, this is just so long ago. Like who talks about what they did 2 years ago, whatever, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I want to hear about it. Tell us about your dreams.
Give us your intro."
I wish it was 2 years ago. It was more like a decade or so ago. So yeah, who talks about their shit when they're sorry? You can't curse on this, can I?
Oh no, I mean we make all the rules.
It's true.
Okay. But yeah, who talks about their stuff after like 10 years of doing it? I'm from Florida. I know, feel sorry for me. It's okay. I get two reactions when I say that I'm from Florida. It's either an oh or a oh.
Politics, is that why?
Yeah, just
okay.
Just the stigma that I guess Florida has around it.
Well, the current stigma, the in the last decade, I think maybe.
Kerry, aren't you from LA as well?
No, I was raised in a cornfield in Ohio.
For some reason, I thought you had also because I grew up in LA.
No, people think I'm a Valley girl, born and raised in Van Nuys for some reason.
If we had all been good weather children, we should just do an episode where we bitch about the weather in New York or something like that. And everybody will just hate us. They'll all just hate us for that.
Like good weather, as in you grew up with nice weather.
Florida and LA, we didn't winter. Are you kidding?
You can bitch about it. I am in a very the winter in San Antonio is going to be quite nice.
Sorry, Amanda. Yeah. I had that thought. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You can interrupt away. No, let's see. I grew up in Florida. I grew up without a lot of means behind me, let's say. So my parents weren't comfortable by any means. And I grew up as a dancer. I started doing when your parents put you into a dance class and you do ballet and tap and jazz and you do all the things. And I fell in love with ballet specifically. So I just threw my heart and soul into ballet. And that was most of my life was in the studio. I was in a company. I got a scholarship to Joffrey. I studied there for about a year. And then I came back before I started my high school academicness. So from after middle school, between middle school and high school, Joffrey, came back halfway between the year and then started high school. Pivoted from ballet and did a hip hop company. So dancing was I know it was very random. I was very, very much the outcast of that company in a great way. So long story short, after I graduated high school, I tried so hard to go to college. I tried, I think 5 times on 5 different colleges. And I lasted I think the longest stint was about a week. And it just, in my heart of hearts and myself, it just wasn't for me. I felt like I was dying on the inside every single time. It was that profound of an experience.
Wow.
On a negative side. So then I just flipped and I was like, well, I'm going to, because drilled into me from a very young age was go to school, you have to get an education. That was my dad specifically. And so the dance and stuff was fine, but I was always like, when are you going to get a real job? That kind of a thing. Not going to college was a big blow for my whole family. I wasn't going to go to appease them. I'm very stubborn that way. So there was nothing really that they could do. But I know that I hit a brick wall with my family when I joined the circus. So that was like a big thing. And I was on my own for that whole entire journey.
Did they get on board at some point? Because obviously you had like a lot of success.
Not really, not really. So until maybe like a decade ago. So how I got into circus, I ended up because I didn't go to school, I had to work. So I ended up becoming a magician's assistant in South Beach. And I was working under two magicians who took me in, and they gave me an apartment and a place to kind of lay my head at night while I was working with them for them. Because my family situation, like my mom got really sick, and then like I kind of was displaced as a child. It was like a thing. Like there's a deep dark past here. So getting that job and having a place to live instead of sleeping in my car was like the godsend. But in that time, I was working as a magician's assistant. There was an aerial artist in the show, and she did silks. And I remember that was the first time I had ever seen any aerial circus-esque anything. And so I was just like amazed by her. I was like, I want to do what you're doing. Tell me how to do things, like show me, teach me, to help me. I want to do the thing. And so the same silk artist that was in the show, the magic show, she was also a silk artist in the family-run circus. It was called the Handcuffs Family Circus. And so she brought me to that circus as a guest dancer for a 2-week run for their Christmas show. And then they taught me how to climb Spanish web, and they taught me how to spin a little bit on Spanish web. And then that was it. And then my 2 weeks was over, and then it was just like back to the magic show. And then that same artist, she was contracted with a different company to go to Europe to headline a show for a year. She ended up getting pregnant. And so he recommended me to audition for them. And I did. And then they took me in. That was like my first serious, like ever touching a hoop or any apparatus that wasn't like a Spanish web. And then they trained me in 2 months. They trained me on hoop, on lira. I built an act in 2 months, and then they shipped me off to Portugal for a year. And I did my first headlining contract in Portugal. But I still got not the backlash, but I still had my parents were, when are you going to get a real job? Because anytime I'd be like, oh my God, I'm traveling the world. That's great. When are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get a real job? So long story short, I stayed with that company for, I want to say maybe 4 years. And I did 2 years in Portugal. I did almost a year and a half in Japan touring with them. And then I toured the States with them doing several different like acts. Lyra was my main. I did a duo trapeze act with them. I did a Spanish web act with them. And then I decided that Cirque was like my goal. That was my big dream. That was what I needed to do. I wanted to do. I was going to try to do everything in my power to get there. So I booked a one-way ticket to Vegas. I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any of that. So I stayed in a Motel 6 until I found a job at the Paris Hotel. It was my first topless show. I wasn't doing aerial, but it paid the bills. And then I found a place. So I was doing the topless show in Paris. And at night after, I would go dance at Studio 54. And this is a long story.
It's a good story.
It's a really good story. I'm like, Noah and Amanda, how common is this? Like that you just get a gig like that and then I don't know, guys, is it?
I don't know. So I feel like my whole career was kind of like that. So when I got into the topless show, it was a really small cast. It was like a 6-person cast. And it was at, like I said, the Paris Hotel. he was a hypnotist, and there was a little bit of magic. So I kind of checked the boxes of being a dancer. I knew about magic in terms of assisting. And I knew aerial, but I wasn't contracted in that show to be an aerialist. I happenstance, I was married at the time. And so my husband at that time connected with a dance partner that he had like 10 years ago from Italy. They're both Italian. They're both from Italy. And they had reconnected. And that friend happened to be the casting director for Cirque, for the dancers. And so he came to see my show at the Paris Hotel. And he had said, like, if you're serious about it, start getting your stuff together, start putting a reel together to submit to just online, submission for yourself. So I was so inspired. It was like, amazing. Thank you. I jumped right on that. So after I would do the show at the Paris, I would go dance, and then I'd get done at like 4 a.m, and then I would go train. I would go train at one of the gyms that was open. And then I would go to sleep and rinse, repeat. And in the process of me doing that, the casting director called me, or he called my then husband, and he said that, hey, there's an immediate opening for Zumanity. Would you be interested in submitting and applying? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Yes. So I got my reel done. I sent it in. And I guess I was one of 6 videos that got sent to headquarters in Montreal. And then of the 6, they chose 3 to audition in person. And so I was one of the 3 to audition in person. And so I go to the Zumanity box office, and they bring me in, and my first audition for Zumanity was on Zumanity stage. And so that process, I had to give an interview like how I'm doing now, which I am so not comfortable with. They asked me to freestyle dance topless because it was a topless show. And then I had to free flow in the air plus simulate having an orgasm, because that was what the act I was auditioning for. That's what you had to do. And there was only 3 of us. The other 2 aerialists were stronger aerialists by light years from me. They were more seasoned, they were stronger, they were more flexible. And I knew that because I saw their audition. We were auditioning in the same space. So seeing that was really intimidating. But when we had to simulate the orgasm, and this is a little bit of, but I'm going to own it. So when we had to do that, I was like, I'm going to go last. And I made that decision in my brain because I wanted to see what the other 2 did. I wanted to see how they approached that. Their orgasms were very pretty. They were very performance-esque. And so I decided, I'm like, this is my one and only chance. I'm just going to do something completely different. And so I went into it more real, more not pretty, more raw, I guess would be a way to say it. And then they thanked us for our time. We left. And then 2 days later, I got a call saying that, congratulations, I got the job because I understood the content of the show and how to move the story forward for the show. So that's...
Oh my God. Okay. I'm so glad you're telling this story because our students would love to hear it from your mouth. Noah, have you seen the show?
So you did the lyra piece, right?
Not in Zumanity. No,
What did you do in Zumanity? The cube?
No, the strap act.
The strap act. Okay, I don't think I saw it when you were in it.
What year did you see it?
2015?
Yeah, I was already retired from there. So I was there from 2009 to 2015. But in 2020, I was in Michael Jackson 1.
Because I don't think they had that. Maybe they had the straps act. I don't remember exactly, but I have seen the show. I've seen it twice. I got pulled up on stage for the orgy scene.
Nice.
Which
of course
is
you did.
Nice.
Probably one of the funniest audience pulled on stage moments ever, because I was standing there with the drag queen and she's like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Well, I own a circus company." And she was like, "We're a circus company." And so like we just had this hilarious moment, and I like, I'm laying down on the bed, and and the bed is circling, and I'm just like hanging out with the aerialist, and like all of us have mutual friends, and we're like figuring that out while we're on stage, and like we're having a great time, and the whole audience is like, they're like, "What's going on?" I will forever be saddened by the fact that Zumanity no longer exists. I personally think that it was one of Cirque's best shows ever made. I wrote so many fucking papers and like pieces about Zumanity in relation to circus history, in relation to circus bodies, in relation to social norms, in relation to performance and bodies and things like I could talk about Zumanity for probably far too long. My mentor, who is the director of dance at Muhlenberg College, she teaches dance history, and we wrote that circus history course together. And so a lot of our research that she did and that we did together was all about circus bodies and sexuality and gender and movement on stage versus, all those things that Zumanity does in a really amazing way. And I never got to take her to the show. It closed before I got to take her to it. But it is, in my opinion, Zumanity was one of the best. And not for the fact that, like, it was a sexy Vegas show.
Yeah.
It was one of the best because for anybody who knows anything about circus history and dance history and bodies on stage and performance, like, it's so smart.
I do know that the creative process was, from what I remember everybody was saying, was very vulnerable because nobody had expressed things that they were asking them to express. And Zumanity in the beginning was way more out of the box and over the top and pushing so many boundaries. By the time I got there, it had already been watered down, for lack of a better word, a lack of a better phrase, but they had already kind of like smoothed out the rough edges, but the rough edges were what pushed those boundaries hard. So it had this really cool, unique evolution. I'm so sad that it no longer exists. It was my first Cirque show, and I grew as an artist there. I changed as a human. Like, it just, yeah. It's heartbreaking to see it go.
Yeah.
Amanda, how did because you're soloist in both of those shows, which is not an easy job to get. How did it inform you afterwards? Like, what did those experiences do to inform you as an artist after?
Yeah. It's funny because yes, I was a featured performer. I was a soloist for both Zumanity and Michael Jackson 1. But mind you, I was a pole artist in both, and I learned how to do pole on the Zumanity stage, which is just bonkers. Throughout my time in creating my acts, I would always ask permission. Is this okay? Can I do this? Is this okay if I do this? What about this? I didn't trust myself as an artist in that process. Leaving that process and going through that and having everything under the sun go wrong on stage, it allowed me to have more confidence within myself. And that's what I really try to hone in with my students is there's no right, there's no wrong, there's safe and there's unsafe. So if you have an instinct to do something, to try something, run with it. And that's kind of the biggest growth and the biggest thing that changed me as an artist working with Cirque. because they were very much not a hand-holdy kind of company. I had really cool artist coaches that would help me, but this is like, yo, this is your act. You got hired on. You do the thing. You're the professional. Like, do it. And so I think that was the biggest takeaway and the biggest way that I shift in my process as an aerialist, as a coach, as a human, just more confidence in my ability.
When I got to know you, you're like 10 years out from those gigs in Vegas. You're 10 years into being in LA.
Yeah.
What was LA like? This is the last 10 years. What has that been like as an artist compared?
So I moved to LA when I decided that I was done with my time in that company. I decided that I wanted to give my body a break, but I still wanted to tell stories. I still wanted to perform. And so I moved to LA for acting, to study acting, to be an actress. And my first few years in LA were very heavily focused on scene study work and the art of telling a story using words, and less so of my body to how I, as a dancer. I took on teaching as a means to survive. And so, but mind you, I was teaching dance since I was 16. So I'm not new to teaching, but I was new to teaching aerial arts. And so I took on teaching as that means to survive. And then when COVID hit, everything became Zoom based and it lost the magic of acting for me. But in that time between moving to LA and COVID, I had fallen in love with teaching. I had moved to LA with the idea that I was retired from performing. So I don't really have a solid base of the aerial circus performance world in LA. Now I gig here and there, but I don't really have a really good understanding of what the performance circus community is out here in terms of being a performer in that world, if that makes sense.
Why did you want to go from telling stories with your body to telling stories with your words? What interested you about that change?
It was more of a practical change. So I had an accident when I left Cirque, before I left Cirque. That was what prompted me leaving Cirque. And that accident, I had in my mind that I didn't want to. I had already had like 2 or 3 surgeries at that point. And so physically, my body didn't want to withstand 475 shows anymore in a year. But I still had that performance bug. I still wanted to perform. I still wanted, I don't know if it's, I wanted people to hear what I had to say and if I had something to say, or if it was a means for me to feel like I had a place in the world. Like that was the thing that I knew how to do since I was 3 years old. That was the only thing that I knew, was to be on stage. So using my voice was just the practical of giving my body a break.
Do you think that a lot of artists from Cirque have that same experience? Like they're still, the performance bug is still in them, but they reach a point with either their physical body or with the stress of performance or whatever it might be, that they step away and they do something else? Or do you think that there is like a whole host of reasons why people make this change in their life?
I do think that everybody's very different. Everybody has their own experiences and that forms their own opinions and their own beliefs and their own, perceptions of things and perspectives of things. But I do know of a few people, of a few coworkers or ex-colleagues of mine that have similar, their time was maybe cut short when they had more to give. But I do know of other people who that's not the case. So I think it does run on a case by case basis, and just where where that individual is in their life, in their career. Do they have a family? Do they not have a family? Are they advanced in age? Like I think that there's a lot of factors that go into making that decision.
Yeah. Because I think there's a, Kerry and I we've definitely talked about this, like the idea that at a certain point everybody becomes a teacher, or like everybody tries to become a teacher, because they're quote unquote done performing or something like that. And I always came at it from a different perspective. I never wanted to be a performer. I had no interest. I always wanted to be a choreographer, director, and teacher. Like I never pursued performance. It just wasn't something that I did. There are skill sets within teaching, within performing, within directing, within choreography, within writing, all of these things that sometimes you gain from being a performer, sometimes you lose from being a performer, and vice versa. Like I don't think I make a very good performer anymore because I've just spent so much time in my head teaching. I think it's interesting how people end up where they've gone, and yeah, it's cool. You have a great story.
No, I think that's kind of rare. I think it's kind of rare, Noah.
Which part?
To not want to perform if you're in it.
I do know.
Do you know a lot of people besides yourself?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's uncommon. Amanda, what I was going to say to kind of piggyback on what you're talking about, LA is a tough town, actually.
Yeah.
It's a tough town. Like after being in a contract in Vegas,
mm-hmm.
I mean, a contract is so different of a life. Like, yes, you have to get through however many shows a week, 8 to 12 or whatever, but you've got a job.
Yeah.
You got a full-time job, you have benefits, you have health insurance, and then you move to LA. There's no contracts to be had. It's all freelance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even clear where you get the jobs because a lot of them are clubs. A lot of them, you have to know the right people because they've been doing it for so long. Like when you got to LA, it was different for me. I was trying to be a dancer, and there is more structure around the dance world than the aerial world. It's like there's agents, there's auditions. You show up at the auditions if you can hear about them. But if you come to LA as a freelance aerialist, even with the resume that you had, like how did you even start?
But that's the thing. Like I wasn't focused on freelancing.
Oh, that's right. You were like, I want to be an actress.
In my head, and this was my ego-based thinking, was I retired from Cirque. Like to me, that was the top of the top, and I had already achieved what I needed to achieve from that world. And so me making the decision to leave that world, in my brain, I was done performing. When I went to go take classes, people would ask my backstory. I didn't tell anybody that I came from Cirque. I didn't want anybody to know, especially when I was studying acting, because I just didn't want to have that. I didn't want to be judged good or bad for where I came from. You know what I mean? My focus wasn't on the freelance, but I will say that being a freelance, even a teacher, because teaching at one specific studio doesn't pay your bills, and I don't do anything else. I am solely an aerial instructor. I don't have a side hustle. I don't have a day job. I don't moonlight as anything. Like this is my sole way of making money. Having to hustle in that way was still not having the cushiony contract underneath me. Like everything's all on me. If I sink or swim, that's on me. If I work and make money, that's on me. How much money I make and how much I hustle, that's on me. So that was a very different way of, it kind of brought me back to my before Cirque days in an interesting way, just on a teaching level instead of performance level. But I can't imagine being a freelance aerialist in LA now,
Do you prefer having, I'm going to say, the cushy contract, or do you prefer having the control over what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it.
Yeah. So Cirque was my dream job. It was my absolute just dream of a job. And I did a lot. I created 2 acts. I was about 7 different characters in both shows that I was in. And it still ended up being, after about 6 years, a 9 to 5. It was still the same music. It was still the same 4 walls. It was still the same people. It was the same track. And I realized that about myself, is that I needed constant stimulation. I needed constant change. I needed something new to strive for. And I felt like I had hit kind of that ceiling at Cirque. Not to say that I was the best of the best in the company. That's not what I mean at all. I just realized that my time, no matter where I pivoted within the company, it was always going to feel like a 9 to 5. Knowing that it's harder on this side of the fence. I do miss performing a lot. I would choose this every single time over having the cushy contract again. I'm a masochist that way.
But trust me, I get it.
Yeah. I love the freedom and the independence for sure.
I feel like Noah, out of even me compared to Noah is a freelancer of all freelancers.
I want to know more about your story, Noah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that you're that person. You do so many things. You do so many things.
I've had maybe 3 9 to 5s, maybe, and none of them lasted very long. I'm the same. I even if I'm making less money, even if I'm working quadruple the hours, there's something about being able to just it's mine. This is mine. There's I don't have a contract with anybody. It's not that nobody has control over what I'm doing. This is mine. I'm in complete control. And the only in between space I can give to add to my ridiculous amount of things that I do is when I was ski patrol up in Mammoth Mountain. That's the only one I can think of that was technically a 9 to 5. I worked for a big corporation. I showed up at this time. I left at this time. But none of it felt like work, and I felt like I was in complete control over it because we just had an immense amount of freedom to do the job, which was so many different jobs. My friend recently, she said to me, she's like, Noah, you're the least committal person I know. Because she's like, well, could you be here every week for the next, 12 weeks? And I'm like, maybe. It's possible.
I don't have that experience with you. You're so responsive. You're not the friend that I'm worried about bailing on an appointment.
That I'm good. But if you say to me
Long term,
can you be at this location for this many hours every single week or every day for the next 2 years? I'm gonna be I don't know. Maybe. It's possible. At least, we're doing a podcast over Zoom. I could be in Shanghai tomorrow, and I could be in...
Yeah, it doesn't make it feel like a commitment, because you could do this from anywhere. Right?
Yeah. It's a commitment in the thing, but the thing is part of my world that I feel like I have control over, as opposed to oh, well, you have to physically be in... The thing that I really like that what you said, Amanda, was the same 4 walls. I think that phrase is not something that people associate with Cirque du Soleil or with theater or with acting, for that matter. They look at people who are doing those kind of performances and doing that kind of work as oh, you're a free artist. You're a free, you are free. You are performing. That's what you're doing. And the idea of the 4 walls, being your cubicle or your office or whatever, if you don't actually have those 4 walls, we don't associate that you have the mentality of it. And I like that you use that comparison as like the stage, as Cirque du Soleil, like you still had those four walls. I think that's a really interesting perspective that I don't think a lot of people will understand or have understood or ever thought about.
They say Cirque has the golden handcuffs. That's a phrase that's used quite a lot.
Wow.
I associate it with the cubicle. Anything. It didn't, like, not just because it's like the Cirque stage, but if anything is making me feel like a rat in the race day in, day out, that's that cubicle for me.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate with you. There are plenty of corporations where it might be handcuffs as well. Like, pick a job, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a regular job. But because Cirque du Soleil is a corporation that has contracts and you're in a job and it's very structured for maybe a population that is more inclined to not be okay with four walls. Is it a part of our nature as creatives, as artists, as aerialists, as dancers, to have such an aversion to that outside, like more so than the general public? I think yes. And I think that that's one of the big topics that I love to get out, because like, what is it about our personalities? Every one of us being so different. And that is still like usually the number one thing. Like, you need to feel free.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate almost on myself here, but like there's two sides of it, right? As an artist, you're supposed to think outside of the box. If you're stuck in the box, it's hard to think outside of it. There are, I'm not going to say the word corporation, but there are artistic spaces that are within a box that are designed to think outside of that box.
Yeah.
There's a level, there's a certain amount of give and take. I'm going to relate this to what I'm doing with Red Flags dating app, which is that there are huge companies out there, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people in the tech world, which is that there are huge companies out there and they like can't innovate anymore. Like, it's really hard for Apple and Match.com and, Microsoft. It's really hard for them to innovate. But what they do is other companies, small companies, people who are, creating startups, they create something and then those bigger companies buy them because they're able to, bootstrap it. They're able to, do this in a really like fun, creative way with no rules. They don't have a big HR department. They don't have big executives. They don't have the four walls that they have to stay within in order to, continue to exist. They have infinite possibilities. So me as a small company, I can do whatever I want. I went through my closet and I dressed up as different possible, red flag outfits, right? So I was dude holding a fish photo. I was Disney adult. I was gym bro. And that's what I did. But if I was working for a big corporation, in order to do that thing, I'd have to go through my boss, who would then have to go through PR, who would then have to go through this. And by the time we had this it's February. And so that box you're stuck in. And so I think there's a balance, right? Once you become this huge corporation, the golden handcuffs, the whole deal, you have to follow a certain template. You're stuck in a box. Then you're a startup. There is no box. You're flying by the seat of your pants. Whatever happens. All is going to be well. Figure it out. And then I think there's a sweet spot. There's a box. We follow it, but we've created a culture of thinking outside of it.
You're really good at this, Noah.
I know.
Is that what you're thinking too? I was like, this is the best. Dude, the best decision we made was saying, Noah, you don't have to say yes, but please say yes.
Yeah. In case our listeners would like to know how I got involved in this podcast, is I got a random text from Kerry and Amanda going, hey, so we've decided that you're going to be in a podcast with us. Are you cool with that? And I was like, yeah, of course.
Yes. And there was a very pregnant pause of time when we texted it and he said, yes, I'm in. And I was a little sweating because I was like, he's probably going to say no to us.
I could never. I love you. I love both of you way too much.
Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find Amanda Ritchie at Grounded in Flight on Instagram and at Noah Doc on Instagram as well as a Red Flags app. And me, Kerry Wee, you can find at wrapyourheadaroundsilks.com. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. We have so much more coming at you, including guests that are in this art world that are blazing their way through new businesses and, just more banter from us. Thank you for listening. This is The Artist Entrepreneur.